to the computer, and then let's do a little screen share here. Boom. Boom, and then present. Y'all see that there? Beautiful. I like it when technology works, right? Let's go. All right. Let's get it rocking. So, my name is Ryan Morrison. I am the owner and founder of Crucible Performance, which is located here in Frederick, Maryland. And I like to call myself, I'm not just a gym owner, right? Because part of my job is training kids, is training adults, is helping athletes, is helping people achieve their goals and dreams, whether it be weight loss or whether it be getting into college, whether it be getting scholarships, like all these things. But so much more of what I do is I like to say that I'm a chain breaker, right? Like I try to go in and I try to help break those chains that are holding people back from being who they're designed to be, right? And because I see it all the time, looking around the world, is people are just bound up by these these chains that are holding them back, whether it's self-doubt or a lack of confidence or their physical bodies holding them back, or the desire to fit into a certain mold or to keep up with the Joneses or whatever it is. We've got all these different things that are holding us back from being the person that we're designed to be. Because I'm a big believer that each and every one of you is designed with special talents, with specific gifts, to be able to better this world, right? And you were designed in that specific way, but so often a lot of those gifts and talents get just trapped up by by all these other chains, right? How much better would it be to live a life free of those chains, right? So when I sit down and say, like, what is it that I really do? Man, that is really what I feel like I do. And part of that is in the gym setting, and part of it is going around and talking and coaching and doing these sort of things. But that's not to say that I don't have a lot of that, what I call stinking thinking as well. A lot of those things that are holding me back as well, and those thoughts. But it's how do we respond to those thoughts, right? And that is exactly what we're talking about today. And we're going to dive into that because we sat down, Brian, Jen, and I sat down and talked a lot about, where you guys are at as a college, and where it is that you're navigating, and some of the struggles and some of the fears and some of the different things that are kind of prevalent in life right now. Like, how do I deal with all these things? So we're going to dive into all that. And I've titled this presentation Crucible Built. Crucible Built because I really believe that is how we grow. That is how we get better. It's through the crucibles in our life. It's through the challenges in our life. If you're like me, you've had some challenges in your life. Can I get an amen? Absolutely. You've had challenges in your life. And if you haven't, kudos to you, and they're coming. But, I find it highly unlikely that you haven't faced any sort of challenge in your life, because that is really the way that life is meant to be. The challenges in our life are there to help refine us. And that's part of why I named our gym Crucible Performance, right? The idea of a crucible is it's a vessel, right? And most people know about a crucible from maybe like gold and things like that, where you put like unrefined metals and unrefined ores into this vessel, into this cup. Think of it like a cup, and you heat it up to extreme temperatures. And what that does is it melts away the impurities, right? Whether it's the dust or the dirt or all the other impurities that are in like raw gold that you dig up out of the ground, right? And it melts all the impurities away. So that way, after it goes through the heat, after it goes through the trials, you're left with something much more pure and much more valuable at the end. And that's exactly the challenges in life. That's exactly what those are meant to do for us, right? So we just all went through a monster crucible, right? A monster challenge of the COVID crucible, right? And we've all had to adapt. We've all had to respond to that challenge. And some people have responded one way, some have responded another, some have reacted emotionally, right? But we all have to go through that, and it's an opportunity for us to get better. And one of the big things that I talk about here at Crucible, right? Let's see if this works here. Boom, next slide. Boom, it worked. I love it. Is cherish the challenge. Cherish a challenge. That's what's on our bands. We have shirts that say it. That is really the the heart and soul of what Crucible does and the message that we bring out. Cherish the challenge. Let's break that down. Like, cherish the challenge. Now, Ryan, like, I know challenges are tough. Challenges are hard. Challenges are not things that are comfortable, right? Maybe it's COVID. Maybe it's work right now. Work is a challenge. Work is hard. Maybe it's dealing with other employees, or maybe it's dealing with bosses. Maybe it's dealing with Zoom and technology. Maybe it's the challenge of being home all the time. Like, how do I deal with this? Maybe it's the challenge of my own personal health and fitness and making great decisions on how to eat or what not to eat. Maybe there's financial challenge right now. Maybe your spouse, right? There's challenges with your spouse. There's challenges with your kids. Like, I'm all of a sudden I'm around them so much more. Like, how do I deal with those challenges? Maybe it's technology. Whatever the challenge is. See, we like to view those challenges not as something to run away from, but we want to view those as opportunities. We want to view those as opportunities to grow, opportunities to develop yourself into being that person that you're designed to be. So that is why we cherish the challenge. That's why we love the challenge. That's why we embrace the challenge. That's why we're running to those challenges. Because what does most people do in life? Most people, when they get faced with a challenge, it's like, no, I don't want this thing. I don't want this challenge. Like, I want to be comfortable. I want to feel good. I want to just have my life be happy and content, and everything is good. But I'm going to argue that if everything is happy and it's good, those aren't the moments in your life that you have grown the most, right? Think about that. All those moments that you're just like happy, content, what do? We just sit back and we go with the flow, and you're not really growing, right? You're content. You're satisfied. There's no urge for you to get better. There's no urge for you to grow into this person that you're designed to be. So that is our big thought here at Crucible is how do we cherish the challenge? How do we switch that mindset that even when things are good, but even more importantly, when things aren't going the way we want them, how do we switch our mindset, right? We talked about work. We talked about COVID. We talked about all these things. Man, if things aren't going the way you want them to right now, how can we switch our mindset? Instead of looking at it as this is happening to me, I want you to think about this is happening for me. This isn't happening to us. This is happening for us. And that's maybe going to be a big change in the way you think. But man, I'll tell you what, if that's the only thing you hear today, that can be a life-changing transformation for you. That can be a life-changing way of looking at the world, looking at challenges. And that can fundamentally change the way that you live the rest of your life if you make that one change there. This is not happening to me. It's happening for me. Quick little story. When I was, 10 years old, I was a little baseball kid. Like, I loved playing baseball, and I was the last player off the bench, right? I was the last player off the bench. Like, there was the kid whose little brother played on the team because, he played up a level because his parents didn't want to go to two different teams. Like, I came off the bench after that kid. Like, I was not good, right? I was more excited about picking dandelions in the outfield. Just where I was as an athlete, as a kid. So what, right? But there was a moment that happened. We were at the end of the season. We were having an awards ceremony, and everybody's getting their little trophy and like, woohoo, cool. But then I saw they pulled up the all-star team, and they started handing out jerseys. And the coolest thing, again, this is 20 plus years ago, they had names on the back of the jersey. Now, I know all the jerseys in the world from 5 years old up have the names on the jerseys now. But back then, that was the coolest thing. And I was like, hang on, I want a jersey with my name on the back of it. How cool is that going to be? But so I went up and talked to my coach, and I said, Coach, how do I get one of those? And again, he looked at me, and knowing that I was that kid on the depth chart, I was the last kid off the bench, he kind of looked at me and said, well, that's for like the best players in the league. And I just kind of looked at him like, so? Like, I want to get one of those. What do I got to do? And I asked him that. I said, okay, well, what do I have to do to earn one of those? He said, well, you've got to be one of the best in the league. But, yeah, and he kind of gave me one of those looks like, why don't you try something else? And I remember walking away from that so confused and not really understanding why my coach would not encourage me. Because even at 10 years old, I'm like, you're my coach. You're supposed to encourage me. You're supposed to tell me I can do anything in the world kind of thing. But to encourage me to play a different sport because I wouldn't be good enough. And I remember going to my dad and saying, like, Dad, like, something just doesn't feel right about this. I want one of those jerseys. What do I have to do? And he told me something that I've never forgotten. He said, you know what, Ryan? Life is the decisions you make. Life is the decisions you make. See, the challenges, this is going to be a challenge that you have ahead of you. And you're going to have to decide what it is, what path that you want to walk down, what path you want to go down. You can go down the path of least resistance and try a different sport. But if you want that jersey, you've got a lot of work ahead of you. And a lot of work is fine, but you have to make the decision to say, I'm going down that harder road. I'm going to choose to cherish this challenge. He didn't say that at the time, but that's essentially what he was saying. He was saying, you're going to have to choose to go down the tougher road. You're going to have to choose to go and embrace these challenges because it's going to take a lot of challenges to grow and to get better. So long story short, I worked my little 10-year-old booty off, and guess what? I got to make the all-star team, which was awesome, and it was the coolest thing ever. But after 12 years old, you go from the small field to the big field. And guess what I heard? My coach said, well, you're kind of the smallest kid on the team. That big field, that's for real baseball players. Why don't you try something else? And it was another one of those moments, those roadblock moments of, well, am I going to choose something else, or am I going to choose the tougher path? Am I going to choose the path that says, hey, I want to play professional baseball. I'm going to have to learn how to do this, so let's go. I chose that path, right? I chose that path to say, you know what, I'm going to learn. I'm going to grow. I'm going to challenge myself in every single area. Ended up making the transition. And every year, because again, I'm not the biggest guy in the world, but every year I heard, you're not big enough, you're not fast enough, you're not strong enough, don't even try. And so this has been a recurring theme in my life, even to this day, of you're not big enough, you're not fast enough, you're not strong enough. Why don't you try something else? Long story short, my baseball career ended with getting to pitch against University of Miami as they were the number 3 team in the nation. I got to pitch against them my senior year. I played Division I baseball. And I remember specifically standing on that mound as they announced my name, as I was getting to play, as I was coming in to pitch. And I remember sitting back and flashing back to that coach at 10 years old saying, man, how different would life have been if I would have listened to him and not tried the tougher option? How would life have been different if I didn't have this vision of being able to stand here and say, you know what, I can do that. I'm going to choose that tougher thing. If I didn't lean into it and cherish the challenge like we talk about. So I talk about this, life is the decisions you make. And I think all of us tend to get frustrated sometimes. Anybody ever been frustrated? I know I have. And I find the times that I've been frustrated the most with my own personal life is when I'm trying to get there, right? I think everybody's always trying to get there. And if you follow on YouTube or the internet, there's always hacks and tricks and, shortcuts on how to get there. And we spend all this time trying to get there, but most of us have never truly defined where there is. Where is it that you're trying to go? What is the path that you're trying to go down? See, we're really good at filling our day with activity, with busyness, with the news, with the media. Like, we can fill our life with so much. I think that's why this COVID thing, when it forced everybody to stop for a second, people were stressed out because they didn't have all these things going on. But how quickly did we start refilling it, right? Refilling our days with things, right? To distract us from our path. So one of the things I'm going to challenge you on right now is, where is your path taking you? Where is it that you're trying to go, right? Some of the frustrations and some of the stress that you might be feeling, a lot of times it's because I know generally I want to go from the East Coast to the West Coast, let's say. But how much better is the path if you have an exact destination that you're trying to go to? Think about like your GPS in your phone. What's the first thing it asks you? It asks you where you are. It tries to figure out where you're at currently in this perfect, in your current state. Where are you? But then it asks you where you want to go. It asks for an address. It asks for a specific place. So that way it can chart out the best path for you. Now, if you were just to say, I want to go from East Coast and just anywhere on the West Coast, well, the path can be an infinite number of different ways, right? You're going to get a very different experience if you end up down in San Diego or up in Portland, Oregon. You're going to have a very drastic and different outcome on life if you just settle for West Coast. I think most of us in our thought process think West Coast. Ooh, I'm thinking San Diego. I'm thinking beach. I'm thinking that. But what happens if your path actually takes you up to Oregon or Washington, right? And yeah, it's kind of rainy and dreary in Seattle, right? Completely different outcome. But that is why we must sit down and take the time to say, where do I want to go? What do I want to do with my life? What are the things that make my soul sing? Right? What are those things? I had a mentor once ask me, he said, Ryan, I'm going to challenge you on this. And this is a great challenge for you if you want to do this. I highly recommend doing it because if you're feeling like, man, I don't know where it is that I want to go. Like, don't feel bad. You're in the overwhelming majority of people generally knowing the direction they want to go, but not the destination. So he challenged me. He said, Ryan, what I want you to do, I want you to flash forward, and you're on your deathbed right now. You're on your deathbed, and I want you to write a letter. I want you to write a letter to your family, the family that I didn't even have yet. He said, I want you to write a letter and let them know all the things that you're grateful for. What are all the things that you were grateful that you got to do? Build a business, or what vacations you were on, or just the different experiences that you had. So I went home and I turned on some of that soul stirring music. You know, that music that just kind of gets you in the right state of mind. And I sat down and I started writing. And I started writing about, the vacations. Like, man, I'm so happy that we got to take this vacation. I'm so happy that we were able to build this business. I was so happy to be able to walk you down the aisle and be part of your wedding. And I started writing all this stuff, and I had no idea where it was really coming from. But in the middle of it, I started crying. I'm getting teary-eyed and weeping, and I'm just so emotional about it. And I remember reading it to him, and I had a hard time reading it to him. And I was like, why am I getting upset and teary-eyed over the things that haven't even happened yet? But I wrote as if it did. And the thing that was interesting was all the thing that this world tends to tell us is important: money, fame, the keeping up with the Joneses, making sure that your Instagram profile looks exactly the way it should, living up to other people's expectations, being so worried about what somebody else thinks about me, all these different things. Nowhere in that letter did I ever write about, man, I'm glad we had that huge house. Man, I'm glad we had that awesome car. Man, I'm glad I was a millionaire. Those weren't the things that I was grateful for. I was grateful for the experiences. I was grateful for the time that I spent. I was grateful for the risks that I took that went well, right? I was grateful for the opportunities to learn and grow. See, it was all those things that I started writing and getting emotional about. And I realized, man, our focus was all wrong. My focus had been so wrong. I'd been focused on, I need to make money. I need to do all these things. But when I got to the end of my life, when I flashed forward, none of that mattered. It was about those experiences. It was about those little things, or those little moments. And it's funny because I still have that letter, and I'll still get emotional about that. And it's funny how some of the things have kind of come true already, where I talked about having a daughter. Well, guess what? I've got a 15-month-old daughter now. And it's just one of those funny things. It's like, man, it was on my heart. And it's amazing to sit there and say, man, I'm so grateful for these opportunities. I'm so grateful for these moments that I'm getting to watch her grow. And it's changed the way that I look at life. It's changed the decisions that I make about my life. It changes the way that I decide to run my business. It changes the way that I make decisions in my business, right? And I'll bet it will do the same for you, right? Maybe work is stressing you out, right? Maybe work is stressing us out, and I'm afraid to speak up, or I'm frustrated with leadership, or I'm frustrated with just where I'm at. Well, guess what? This COVID season, it's giving us a unique opportunity, isn't it? It's challenging us in a different way than anybody has ever been challenged before in their life. It's challenged me in business. It's challenged me in my personal life and my spiritual life, my emotional, like all of the areas of my life have been challenged by this one event. And now might be the perfect time for you to sit back and say, where am I going? What is the path that I want to be on? Because if you find yourself waking up and dreading going to work, dreading hopping on a call, dreading doing what you're spending the majority of your life doing, I'm going to challenge you to see if this job or this stress or this whatever is really the right thing for you. Or is there something else that's going to help you get to your path? See, we all have to make that decision, because one of the questions I asked you about was, what is it that makes my soul sing, right? Now, for some of you, this job might be the thing that just loves you, like that you just love to do. You wake up and you're excited to go and do it. That's how I am with my job, and I'm so blessed to be able to do that. I love getting up and going to work, right? But also, some of you guys might love spending time with your kids, helping put them through college. You might love being able to put them through sports, right? And this job right now is the ability to be able to do those things that you love, right? So you have to realize where this job or this activity or this whatever it might be aligns with your path, right? Because we want to get as many things on that path as possible. We want to get as many things that are going to help us go down that path. And if there's something that we're doing, maybe it's eating properly, maybe it's your job, maybe it's some of the relationships you have. If they're pulling you off your path, we need to decide whether or not that's good for us, right? So this is maybe a unique challenge and a unique opportunity, but I'm going to challenge you on this. I want you to react versus respond. Or I don't want you to react. Scratch that. Don't react versus respond. See, reacting is an emotional thing. Oftentimes, that's what we see on the news media. They go to the most emotional thing, right? Because emotion, it sells, right? Emotion sells. So they're going to show us all the reactions of people versus the people who are responding to situations. Because what is a response? A response is I've sat down, I've thought about it, and then I'm going to make a decision irregardless of emotion, right? And one of the biggest emotions that I find people struggling with, having to face, is that of fear, right? Fear. I think fear likes to creep in, and especially in this day and age, fear is creeping into people's lives, and it's going to be that chain that just holds them and binds them up. But I read this quote. I actually read it yesterday, so I threw it in there. I threw this in here. It's in a book called The Last Arrow. And he said, we need to be ready for those unexpected moments when we're called to elevate. Those moments so much bigger than we are that we can hardly breathe. Man. Anybody ever been in one of those situations? Anybody ever been in a situation where they feel like they have to make a decision, but they don't quite know what it is, how to go about doing it, what it's going to be? Man, those are the moments that we need to be running more to, or that we need to be prepared for. Because what a terrible a terrible thing it would be if we just live every day waiting for the opportunity versus living every day preparing for the opportunity, right? We don't want to just live and wait for that opportunity to show. We want to live and prepare for that opportunity, because I think if you were to look back at your life, those moments that took your breath away, those were the ones that punched you in the face and fear kicked in. Those were the moments in your life that you rose to the challenge, right? Quick story about my business, right? Quick story about my business and just where we're at and how things went about. I took the leap, which was scary enough to start my own business, and we were renting space out of a facility. And starting your own business is scary enough. If anybody has a business of their own, starting your business is scary enough. Y'all know what I mean. And we started seeing some success. And within the first year of being open, right? Within the first year of being open, we were blessed to be named Frederick News Post Best Gym in Frederick. And it was like, yeah, baby, this is awesome. Like, this is easy, right? This is easy. We're feeling good. But I went into a meeting around Thanksgiving shortly after winning this award, and we were talking about expanding our business within the facility. And I went into this meeting, but you ever get those feelings sometimes where you're like, you know what? I feel like something ain't right. Well, I went into that meeting with that feeling, and sure enough, I went into this, and they said, hey, congratulations on winning Best Gym in Frederick. We're pumped for you, but we need you out. We're kicking you out. So I just went from this emotional high of like, we're the best gym in Frederick, we're growing, this is amazing, to being kicked out and being business homeless, right? And it was in that moment, daggone, if fear didn't kick in. If fear didn't kick in, it was immediately that react versus respond moment. My emotion was terrified. I wanted to cry. I felt like puking. Like, how do I deal with this? I've got a family at home. We just started this business. Now what am I going to do? Fear started kicking in. The emotion started kicking in. And I had to remind myself, okay, Ryan, I need to respond versus react. Now, what does responding look like? See, I'm a big believer that fear actually stands for something. It means face everything and run. I'm either going to face everything and run from it. I'm going to run the other way. I'm not going to run to the challenge. Nope. I'm going to run away from it. I'm afraid of it. I'm just going to let things happen how they may. I'm just going to go the opposite direction. Or, this is one I like, I'm going to face everything and rise. And we have that choice to make. See, the response, I'm going to react, I'm running. Man, if there's a lion and it's growling and it's hungry, you better believe I'm going to be running. And that's going to be an emotional response and probably a good response. Get the heck out of there, right? Or I can face everything and rise. And that's exactly what I decided to do with my business. See, as a husband, I always want to make sure that I'm taking care of my wife and she's feeling good and she's happy. And so here we are coming up on Thanksgiving, and we just got kicked out. And she knew that we were having this meeting about expanding, and it was great. And so I went home, and she was in the best of moods. Any like husbands out there, like, how am I going to deliver this potentially bad news and like rain on her day? Because like when she's having a great day, man, I want nothing more than just to continue like pumping her up. And man, she has a good day. Everybody has a good day. Amen. Right? So she looks at me. She said, Ryan, like, how did the meeting go? How's the expansion going to go? And I said, well, turns out that we're getting our own facility. And she kind of looked at me, and I said, yeah, we're getting kicked out. And I said it as like positively as I could to try to like, respond in this. And she, man, Lord willing, she just said, okay. But man, I really believe that it was, probably a God thing, and that he blessed me with a wife that was going to respond in that way, not just react. But man, it was truly one of those respond versus react moments of, am I going to allow fear to dictate how I react or respond to this. Because man, fear isn't going to do anything but tear us down, right? And there might be moments in your business life, in your relationship life, if you know, let's say you have something you want to bring up to leadership, or you've got an idea, but man, it can be kind of scary stepping out there, out on a limb and saying, you know what, like I want to do this. How do I grow? Like, how do I get this out there? Because you know what, like I'm afraid of what people might think. I'm afraid that somebody might think that this is dumb, or I'm afraid of how leadership's going to respond, right? One of the things that I've learned, okay, fear, let's say you've got a big phone call to make, or you have a conversation, a hard conversation that you have to have, right? Whatever, like you're fearful. Fear feeds on time. Fear feeds on time. You ever notice that the longer you put that off, that event off, that phone call off, that conversation off, it doesn't make you feel any better. If anything, it only brings out more anxiety. It only brings out more stress, and it makes it even harder to have that conversation. So if there's anything that you're fearful of, that conversation, take care of it right away. Make that phone call. It's kind of like that ripping the Band-Aid thing off. Just go and do it. Because more times than not, how much better is it? It's kind of like, oh, well, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, right? You're going to be so much more productive, and there's going to be so much more that's going to happen in a positive way if you just punch that fear in the face and attack whatever that fear is, stepping into that challenge and rising above it versus running from it. So that fear thing, we want to face everything and run. Boom. But part of that is taking extreme ownership. Part of dealing with fear is taking extreme ownership. Now, I got that title from a guy, some of you guys might know, his name's Jocko Willink. Jocko Willink, and he wrote a book called Extreme Ownership, and he's a former Navy SEAL, and he's doing some amazing things in the business world, and he was an incredible Navy SEAL. But I want to make sure that, oh, man, trying to let people in. Oop. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. There we go. Sorry. There we go. Chat wasn't up. My bad. There you go. Extreme ownership. Perfect example of it. He did some amazing things. One of the best things you can do when it comes to punching fear in the face or dealing with these next level things is taking that extreme ownership. But what does that mean? It means that no matter what's going on around me, no matter what's going on in my sphere of influence, I take ownership of it. Whether it's excuses, whether it's a project, whether it's a shortcoming, whether it's an oops, whatever it is, take ownership of it, right? Take ownership of it, because as soon as you take ownership of it, you show leadership, right? Which is something that I think we all want to have is some sort of leadership. But also it takes the fear away, because it's no longer going to be a blame game, right? If you just step into it and say, you know what? I own it. I'm going to fix it. Here's the solution. Let's go. You don't have to worry about it. And there's no longer those room for excuses, right? Here's a challenge for you. I love challenges. And this was a challenge that I gave myself. And I'm going to then give it to you. I want you to think about, what is your biggest excuse? Or what is your go-to excuse? Think about that for a second. What's my go-to excuse? What is the thing that I always go to? Don't have enough time. I don't know how. I'll do it later. I'll start on Monday. What is your go-to excuse? Now I want you to picture life. What would happen in your life if you never allowed yourself that excuse again? If you just excused that excuse out the door, how would life be better? Would it allow you to do some things that maybe you've always wanted to do, but fear's been keeping you away from it? right? This fear thing always keeps us bogged down. It's a chain that holds a lot of people back. You've got a great idea, something that you think can really help your business, or you think that can help your people around you right now. But I'm afraid how people might react. I'm afraid of how leadership might react. So, I'm just not going to say it because I'm afraid. What happens if you don't allow yourself that excuse? If you really believe in that idea, if you really believe in it helping. Now, here's a big distinction. I'm going to say this. If it's something that we just want to complain about, right? Probably leadership ain't going to be too happy about it. But one thing I've learned about leadership, if you can help leadership look good, they're going to be on board with it. Amen, right? If you can help leadership look good, they're going to be on board with it. So I'm getting rid of this excuse, and I'm feeling good, and I'm ready. I've got this idea, and man, we go up to our leadership and say, hey, I've got this idea, and guess what? I think it's going to help. I think it's going to help us all, and it's going to help us all do better. They're probably going to respond pretty well. But this is where we have to take extreme ownership. If our solution is just to complain to leadership and say, man, I don't like how this is going, but we don't have a solution to come with it, they're probably not going to like that. Think about our kids, right? Think about our kids. If anybody has kids, when they just keep nagging us and telling us all the things that they don't like, we don't respond well. We're like, come on, right? But when they say, hey, I messed up, or I've got this great idea, this is how I want to do it, and I think this is how it's going to benefit us, we look at our kids and we say, well, daggone, let's go. Let's get after it. Let's do it. It's the same thing in business. It's the same thing in life. It's the same thing everywhere we go. But it takes the ability to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to own this no matter which way it goes. If it turns out great, awesome. If it doesn't turn out well, no problem, because we're learning, because we're always learning. And if you ever get scared of that, if you're ever not quite sure what to do, I'm going to wrap this up here for you guys. I want you to focus on the next right thing. Just focus on the next right thing. What is the next right action that you can take? See, because I think sometimes we get so bogged down and fearful of, and I think it all goes back to not knowing where our path is taking us. It really goes back to, I need to know my end destination. But if you don't have that end destination in mind yet, don't worry about that. Take some time on that. But I want you to step back, and in whatever the moment is right now, just focus on doing the next right thing. Man, your alarm goes off in the morning. My reaction is I want to hit snooze, but that's not the next right thing to do. The next right thing to do is to get your little booty out of bed. And then what's the next right thing to do? Maybe it's to work out. Maybe it's to go get some breakfast. Maybe it's to have a little bit of quiet time. Maybe it's to do some reading. What is your next right thing? Maybe it's at work and there's gossip going on. Oh, gossip at work? No way. Maybe the next right thing is not feeding into it. Maybe the next right thing is stepping up and having that difficult conversation with somebody. Maybe the next right thing is just to shut up and listen, right? Who knows? But if you focus on that next right thing, you're not going to get overwhelmed by the fears of what may happen, what if, and this. Because guess what? Our mind is really good at taking fear and making it the worst thing ever, isn't it? We can turn one small decision into, I'm never going to be able to have a job again in my life, right? But more times than not, that hasn't happened, right? More times than not, all the fears that we punch in the face, we grow from, right? So focus on that next right thing. And then I want you to always be ready for your opportunity. What that also is always be ready for your next challenge. Because I'm a big believer that challenges are opportunity. They are opportunities to grow. They are opportunities to get better. And I want you to always be ready for your next challenge. Always be ready for your next opportunity to grow. Because I think this is what we see a lot in life. We feel like we're here, man, and we're just pushing up against this wall. We're pushing against this wall, and we're pushing as hard as we can, and we feel like, daggone, this is the biggest wall in the world, and there's just no way to overcome it. But what I want you to realize is that every single challenge you face, every single challenge that we come up on is an opportunity. And this big wall that we're facing and we're pushing and we're spending so much time and energy being afraid of, it's really just the front face to your next step, to your next level. It's the opportunity to grow up to that next level, to take the next step up. And it might be scary, and it's going to be scary, and it's going to demand more from you than maybe you've ever given before. It's going to have tough conversations. It's going to take taking chances and risks. But that's what it takes to get up to that next level, to refine yourself, to become that better version of you, that person you were designed to be. But I also want you to take an even bigger step back from the situation. Again, don't get emotional about it. Let's respond. Let's not react. Let's respond. And I want you to realize that where you're at right now, you've actually already overcome quite a bit. Because if you're honest with yourself and you look back at your life, we've all said that we've all faced challenges. And we've all grown from them. We've all gotten better. So if you've already done this, you're just finding out that right where you're at right now is maybe where it got extra tough and it's challenging you in a different way. But that's exactly what it's meant to do. That's exactly what life is meant to do. That is what the cherish the challenge mindset is all about. It's about running to these challenges. It's about finding as many of these vertical walls and these stair steps that we can find and then figuring out whatever we can do to get up on top of that. So that's what I mean at the very beginning when I say we're Crucible built. We're Crucible built. All the challenges you're facing right now, whether it's COVID, whether it's work, whether it's relationships, whether it's technology, whatever it is, health, fitness, whatever it is, those challenges that take your breath away, that's that front edge of that step saying, come on up. Let's figure it out. Let's learn. Let's grow. So that way you can keep becoming that person you were designed to be. There we go, guys. That is what I had for you today as far as presentation. I don't even know what time it is. Boom. That was a little long. I'm sorry. I just got excited. But there we have it. And sorry thank you, Lauren, for mentioning that there was somebody trying to get in. My chat wasn't up. But, man, thank you so much for the opportunity of talking. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them. I have those 2 questions earlier. And if you have additional questions, again, please feel free to pop them in if anybody has any. Stress reduction tips at home. Love it. Great question. Anybody stressed? Anybody stressed? Amen. Yes, we've got a lot of stress. One of the best things as far as home stress reduction, stress relief, is it's simple. And it's probably going to be like, Ryan, that's not that like earth-shattering, but that's good. That means we can all do it. Is taking time for you, setting time aside for yourself immediately in the morning, right? Maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe it's 15, maybe it's 30 minutes. I try to take an hour in the morning. Don't always get that, but I try to take an hour in the morning where I set aside that time immediately in the morning, and I start off with gratitude. What are some things that I'm thankful for? Right? Because where does stress come from? A lot of times stress is like allowing all these other things to fill our mind and fill our heart and fill ourselves up with all these other things versus the path that I'm on, all the things that I can be grateful for. But if I can start my day off with focusing on maybe my top 5, my top 10, my top 1 thing that I'm grateful for that day, it changes the view, the lens that we begin to look at the world through, right? It allows us to look at the day, setting the tone for the day and responding to the day versus just reacting to the day, right? So take your morning time and take some time for gratitude, journal it out. If you're a spiritual person, right, you can pray, you can read, whatever it may be, whatever works for you. Having that just quiet time to listen. Now, try not to fall back to sleep, right? But listen to those whispers, right? Like, where does it feel like I can get going? And I think a lot of times I find that people, when they're super stressed, it goes back to that path thing. What path are you on? Where's your path leading you? And it can be daggone stressful if you don't know where the finish line actually is. Like if I just sent you out on a race and said, go, but I didn't tell you where the end of the race was, you'd be stressed out. And if your life was on the line, you'd be really stressed out because you don't know which way to go. But if I were to tell you, yeah, the finish line's over there, then some of the anxiety goes away because then you can figure out a path to get there. And I think that taking some of that morning time and listening to those whispers and taking some time and really asking yourself, man, what does make my soul sing? What are the things that allow me to become this person that I'm designed to be? What are the things that I really want out of life? That can help reduce a lot of stress. Another thing I do to reduce stress at home is I don't turn my phone on or check emails for at least an hour after I wake up. All right. I keep my phone off. Like, I have my phone because I do a lot, like my Bible study and stuff like that on there, but I don't respond to emails or anything for at least an hour. I don't go on social media because, again, I want to dictate my energy for the day. I want to dictate how my mindset is for the day. I try not to allow the world, because as soon as you turn on the news or social media, you already know what you're going to get flooded with, inundated with, right? We don't want to do that. We want to be determining what goes in our head, into our heart, into our mind. So get your quiet time, turn that phone off, turn the news off, right? Like, just, you already know what's going on. Like, and if it's really important, somebody will tell you about it, right? So turn that stuff off. Those are probably my biggest stress tips, at least for home, is just get that quiet time for you. Because so often what it is it starts with hitting the snooze button, and then you wake up late, and then you're stressed, and then I didn't get breakfast, and then I've got to get into emails and works, and I got Zoom meetings all day, and then and one thing just builds on the other. So I'll tell you, setting that morning time for you would be huge. If you have any other questions, again, feel free to pop those in if you're curious about that. Here, let me stop this here. Boom. And then step up in a leadership role, encouraging somebody to step up into a leadership role. So one of my biggest things when it comes to leadership is be others focused. Be others focused. I find that the best leaders, right, are others focused. And this can kind of come into, if you have an idea, or you have something that you're wanting to change at the university or in business or at school, like whatever the culture is. If you're looking at it through the lens of how is this going to help others, more than likely people are going to respond really, really well. If you're looking at it from the lens of how is this going to help me, people respond to that, but probably not in the way that you want them to, right? So if you think about some of the best leaders that have ever been, right, they're a lot of times others focused. So I would if you're going to try to encourage somebody to step up into their role as a leader, I would kind of step down through some of the things that we talked about today. I'll bet if they're not stepping up into a leadership role, there's fear there, or there's insecurity there. And digging down into some of those fears and some of those insecurities, right, are going to help, right? A lot of times people don't feel comfortable with stepping up into a leadership role because they're afraid of how their leadership is going to respond to them. Man, if I say the wrong thing, they're going to fire me, right? I might lose my job. So they might not respect me, or whatever it is. But again, if we can come to that person, let's say we have an idea, and I kind of said this earlier, a lot of times leaders like to look good, right? They want to look good. So if you can come to them with that idea in a serving manner, saying, here, I think this will help us. What do you think about this? Versus a complaint, right? I don't like how this is going. You figure it out. Leadership will take much better to helping them look good than they will to, hey, I don't like how this is. You need to fix this, right? Because we wouldn't like that if our kids came to us that way. Mom, Dad, I don't like the way you do this. Fix this. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? So that that would be that. Hopefully I answered that. If whoever asks that, if you want to expand on that, we can certainly have that conversation. Dory, did I say that right? Love the pulled back image showing that we've already overcome many steps. I was encouraging. Yeah, I think so often we get so caught up in just the here and now, and we forget where we've been. Like, y'all, I guarantee if I were to sit down and listen to each one of y'all's stories, y'all have an amazing story. I guarantee it, and I guarantee you all have already overcome so many things in life, right? That if you were to sit back and look back at it, you'd be like, daggone, like, that was not easy, but I grew from it. And you are truly the collection of all those amazing overcoming steps and stories. So if you're in a spot that you are discouraged because something is challenging, just realize all the steps that you've already overcome, all the challenges that you've already overcome, and realize that you had to grow from those, and this is going to be no different. Now, it might be challenging you in a different way, right? It might be challenging you to develop a different skill set than you have before, but that's good, right? That's allowing you to become that person you're designed to be. But yeah, I guarantee that each and every one of you guys has overcome huge obstacles, and would have a story that would be awesome to listen to. And that's another cool thing that you can do is sit down and journal. Like, I'm a big journaling guy. Sit back and write down some of those challenges that you've overcome. Like, what are some of the biggest obstacles that I've overcome? What are my wins every week? Here you go. Here's a little encouraging thing you can do. Every Sunday, I sit down and I do something called a WLAG, WLAG, right? I write down all the wins from the week, my losses or lessons from the week, aha moments, and then my goals for the upcoming week. So the wins, you write down your wins. Man, these are all the good things that I've got going on. Because how easy is it to forget about and let those wins just kind of like, next. But then we'll dwell on that one loss. We'll dwell on the one thing that can beat us up and get in our head and like tear us down, right? We dwell on that. You could have 100 things go well in a day, but that one thing, that one conversation goes wrong. What do we dwell on? That one wrong thing, and we forget that one thing over. You know, it outshines the 99 awesome things that may have happened. So write down your wins for the week or wins for the day. Do it nightly if it helps. Losses or lessons. I like calling them lessons because I feel like it's not really a loss if you're learning from it, right? It's not really a loss if you're learning from it. And if you can grow and learn from a mistake, cool. Extreme ownership. Own it, learn from it, grow from it. Like, there's nothing worse than like, dang, there's a mistake and, well, I'm just going to repeat it, right? That's one of the biggest things that I've learned from my daughter. Again, 15 months old, just watching her try to walk and learn how to walk. She never felt sorry for herself when she fell. She just got back up. She got back up. She got back up until she could do it. And I'm like, man, if I could take that same mindset to life, to business, don't feel bad about it. Learn from it. I got to balance better. Go next. Like, man, she's so smart. She's so smart. So I often don't speak up because I have had a history of feeling like what I have to say is not important and or I get caught off. How should I handle or change? Man, great question. Great question. A lot of times it's a confidence thing, right? I'm afraid of, let me even back up. We're really good at beating ourselves up, right? We know all our worst insecurities. We know all of our worst things that we're afraid of, right? And a lot of times we really want to be liked. We want our peers to like us. We don't want to ruffle feathers or like you said, you know, I'm afraid of what I have to say is not important. I would dig deeper into that and ask yourself, why do you feel like what you have to say isn't important, right? Just like me, So again, perfect example here, because I often have that same exact fear, right? I look at myself and I say, I'm a 34-year-old kid. What am I going to tell people? What am I going to help people with? How am I going to, tell some people that have been working longer than I've been alive, how am I going to help them? Because it all goes back to that coach that told me, like, hey, you're not big enough. You're not fast enough. You're not strong enough. But it really took me saying, you know what I have to say is valuable. The experiences that I have, that I've had in life are valuable, and others can learn from them and grow from them. So what I would do is I would initially dig in and say, why do you feel like what you have to say isn't important? I'd be really curious to know why that is, because I'll bet what you have to say is important because you're saying it. I'm a big believer that everybody's opinion, everybody's thoughts, we can grow from, we can learn from, and there's value to it. Now, a great leader is going to say, I want it all. You got an idea? Let's go. But their vision of it doesn't mean it's valuable or not valuable, right? So I would start just by, again, punch fear in the face. I would bet that there's a lot of fear not knowing the situation, but there's that fear of, I'm afraid of how people are going to respond to what I have to say. So I diminish it and say, it's not really that important anyways, right? Because I've been in that position. I could speak up right now, but I'm not going to because it's probably not that good anyways. We're really good at beating ourselves up. But I would just punch fear in the face and rise above it. Don't run from it. Rise above it. And when you have a thought, say, am I reacting to a situation or am I responding? Cool. I've got a very good logical reason for this. And go ahead and just punch fear in the face and say, because I've always found that when I've held myself back from saying stuff, I've always kicked myself way more than when I say whatever it is that I need to say. So, and again, if anybody has any additional questions on some of this stuff, I put my contact info up there on the screen. Feel free to email me or call me or whatever. I have no problem with answering any of these questions. If you want to dig deeper, if there's something that you're like, I don't really want to talk about it on here, call me, email me. I would love nothing more than to chat with you a little deeper on some of these things. So again, if you feel like, man, I want to dig into that, feel free to email me. Here, I'll put my email in the chat here. And again, if you have anything, boom, that's my email. Feel free to email me and say, hey, I'm thinking about this. Or if you have a thought later on. So there we go. Any other questions? And again, hopefully I answered that well for you. But again, if you want to dive deeper into that, again, email me and we can set up a Zoom or we can dig into that even deeper. That's what I'm here to do. So any other questions? Any other thoughts? Or is everybody watching Netflix right now? I hope not. So cool. All right, Jen, Brian, you got any other questions or thoughts? Or
I just want to tell you thank you. You're awesome. You know what I think about you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
And I would just say, Ryan, thanks for holding this for us to help all of us that are dealing with the anxieties that we're going through right now through this situation. I would also like to thank Jen and the group, the committee that was putting together Professional Development Day. I'm glad we were at least able to have this time together, and encourage everyone, reach out to any of us if you have something that you need to talk about, discuss. Ryan, thank you for offering your help and advice through some of this too. And again, thank you all.
Absolutely. And absolutely. Lauren, yes, I'll come and chat as much as you want. Heck yeah. I love that. There we go. So again, if anybody does have additional questions, again, hit me up. I'm on social media. I'm on all that good stuff, but shoot me an email and I would be more than happy to dig in Because I know sometimes like talking in these kind of situations is kind of like goofy and weird. Because it's like, oh man, if I ask that question, they're gonna know that was me, and I don't want that. Like we're really good at beating ourselves up. So guys, thank you so much for joining. I love it. So feel free to, like I said, reach out. But what I'll do, guys, is I will